Hello, my lovelies. I'm Shaq, and welcome. I had a doctor's appointment yesterday, and it went. The covers on the mask did exactly what I'd hoped they'd do. They did. They sparked conversations and comments that were unexpected, but it did create that more friendly, more approachable appearance by putting fairies on my face. Well, so success there. Today we're going to do the mushroom cap. And I'm going to show you that I've got the Lika Chan dolls that are on the factory bodies they're used for Blythe. And anyway, they look to me like the perfect little fairy. So I'm going to take you and show you that, and then we'll get started. Here they are, the cutest little mushroom fairies ever. Let's turn them around. So this is the original mushroom cap that I made. And that's the one we're going to try and come a little closer to mimicking. And this is the trial or the test of the pattern. And it turned out smaller, so I had to change the pattern and stuff. It works fine on these girls. But I wanted to share the lace here, the lace detailing on the gills. I liked how that turned out. And I did a lot of spots on top of the cap in the circular pattern, you see, is very much how they happen in nature. Anyway, it's got a little bit of cushion, a pretty deep cap. So I only changed it a little bit so that it would fit my gnomes, because that's really, I want it to be able to fit SC here. And all of the brownies and gnomes from my collection of dolls that I make. And it still will work on the Lika because that's what size this one is. So we're going to get started on that. These are the pattern pieces. We have the cap, which you can put spots on, you can put sequins on, you could start with a glittered fabric. I used wool felt for all of these pieces, but I also have an additional piece on the gills, but we'll get to that. Anyway, so decorating this, embroidered French knots would be cool because it'd give it some more texture. I did use felt. I just cut out little odd shapes and stitched them on. So there's a few on this pattern piece to give you kind of an idea. But really you can do whatever kind of texture on top or none. The Amanita actually has a poisonous variety that's really, really poisonous, like instant, instead of just make your stomach upset. That is bright green and doesn't have any spots. So, you know, and if you're dealing in the fantasy world, you know, any color, blue, purple, whatever. And then these two, you'll cut one of each. This is the interior cap in here. And these are the gills. And I have put these blue gill lines on here to just kind of be a guideline. I did not apply my lace in the same pattern. I actually put a lot more lace on than what's drawn here. But the other thing that you'll want is a piece of fabric or stiffener. So I've got the felt ring, and this time I'm not going to have it show. So it's showing here. And I put a stiffener on the inside, so I was using an interfacing. If you just do the felt, it's just a little more rounded if you don't have a stiffener in here. And this one has a very lightweight stiffener, so it's pretty close to what you get just using the felt. But I'm gonna use muslin on it this time, and I believe that's what I used the first time. So it's a little stiffer than your lightweight interfacing. So I have not cut out the center here, and I've cut it a little larger. Neither of those things you could go ahead and cut it out completely. I'm just experimenting for myself to see whether or not it's easier to put it through the sewing machine. So I did all of this one by hand, because when I was working on it, it wasn't convenient to use the sewing machine. But this one I'm going to do on the sewing machine, just as I did the first one on the sewing machine. And I want to put the gills, sew the gills on the machine. And I wanted to just have the stabilization of having that center there, and a little bit of leeway just in case anything crawled, just to see if it made it easier. So I think that's the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go and get the sewing machine and sew the gills. And I am going to use a brown contrasting thread this time. I got a dark shadow over here. So this is what it looks like when done. Obviously, I wasn't successful in going straight across. And now I'll trim out the center and trim off all the thread ends and everything and the extra fabric around the edge. And now that we've got the gills sewn in here, we're going to sew the spots on the top. Now I'll trim off all the threads and we'll move on to the next step. I'm getting a lot of shadow from the camera today, so I've moved it and hopefully we can see a little better. I have taken and put a running stitch along the edge of the mushroom cap top to work to gather this up. We're going to fold it in half and mark it with some straight pins. Guess I could use a marking tool, like just put dots, but I guess I find this quicker. I don't know. Don't have to have another tool, right? So now we've got halfway, and we're going to match those up. And we'll have the other quarters. Making sure it didn't shift. Okay, we've got our 4 quadrants marked, and now we're going to do the same thing with the gills. I am keeping the muslin out for mine. You can do the felt side or the muslin side, your choice, or if you use some other kind of stiffener. I was just thinking it'd be kind of really cool to do a patterned gills, like something with stripes or something with a floral pattern. Might be fun to do. In fact, this whole thing would be kind of fun to do in a floral pattern. I would probably still make it with the felt or with a batting. You could use like a cotton batting behind your floral print so that it gets the same stiffness. And then you could have fun with using other fabrics that have designs on them for that more fantasy mushroom. Also let you use, your other fabrics if you don't have wool felt, as long as you've got batting. I guess that would be the caveat. Do you have batting? Do you have quilting supplies? So I've now marked the quarters of this so that we can start. All right, so this is my correct side, my right side of the fabric, and this is my right side. And I'm going to put them together. Try not to get caught on the straight pins because they were just trying to get me. And then I am going to pin them together at those spots. So we just match them up as we go around, keeping my my running stitch tails out where I can get them. Try not to pin through them or anything. I've also tied them together so that they don't accidentally get away, get lost. And, sometimes they'll just pull right out. So I just tied them together right there. And once we have this pinned together, we'll pull up on the gathers and add a few more pins. And then go back to the sewing machine. Not that we've left it, it's right here. Okay. I pull it further than I need to, and then I can work from, so if you're pulling from this side, you know, over here, go to the opposite side to start working out the excess. And as soon as you've got this fairly well matched up to the outside is the same distance as the inside or the gills. And this is what happens as you find it letting go too much. So I'm going to go back over here. And you could always use a gathering stitch on your machine. I just didn't like the way it looked for this. It made smaller gathers, smaller sections. You can always pull, like, get it where you think you've got it fairly evenly distributed, and if the gathering part retracts on you, you know, like you lose the gathers, you can always pull it up as you come around on the machine. Just pull it up, make sure it's gathered up before you stitch across it, because we seem to be having that problem. You could also wrap, wow, all of a sudden I couldn't talk. You can take your thread and wrap it around your pin to help keep the gathers in place. That's something I used to do when making gathered skirts. Well, my pin just got away. Guess I should find that before I step on it. So what you want to be sure is that this is like the gills section is flat as it goes through the machine. You don't want it gathered up. So we're going to go and we're going to do an 1/8 inch stitch or a 3 to 4 millimeter from the edge stitch. My machine happens to have the foot at that width, so that's, and I don't like sewing up felt at a wider and then trimming it off. It's just one of those things. So I'm going to go do that. Okay, here we are stitched together. Now we're going to take our hat band and we're going to stitch together the short ends. So you've taken that long rectangular piece that I held up here upside down and you're going to stitch it together along the short ends so that you have that band. Then you're going to flip it with the seam allowance on the inside here, and this needs to be about a 3 millimeter seam allowance. And you're going to pin it in place. You can probably kind of work that in quarters so that it's a little easier to not end up with it, oh, what is the words? Where you have all this space and it won't come together. So there's going to be a little bit of easing because we are putting a flat piece against a perpendicular pieces together. And you might, if it's giving you trouble, go ahead and put that running stitch in the gill edge and pull it up, if that makes it easier. It's totally fine if you end up with some tiny little gathers along here. It's really close, and all it takes is for your seam allowance to be just a little bit different. And then you should be able to put this into the sewing machine and sew it like this, but if you can't, stitch it by hand. And I'm going to do that next. I actually ended up stitching around it twice because it just felt like it wasn't secure enough the first time. But once in place, it was easier to get that second stitch around, to go around a second time. Anyway, now you turn it right side out. And this next step does, next sewing step will be done by hand. Because I don't know any other way to do it. Okay, so we've got it all flattened out here. And then you tuck this to the inside. Ooh, I have some threads. Those are from the fabric. Well, I'll just trim those off. But managed to do it without any gathers except one. Yeah, I got one little gather in there. But again, you know, it just kind of adds to the dimensionality of the gills. We're going to stitch the top of the interior of the hat, the piece I call the mushroom cap crown, that to this hat band. And before we do that, you want to give your mushroom a little bit of dimension by stuffing it with, I'm going to use some wool fluff and put it in there. But I forgot to put it over here. So, okay, so we have some wool fluff, and I'm going to primarily put it around the outside edge. There will only be a tiny little bit on the top. But that is up to you. You got to leave room, of course, for your cap to be on the inside, which is part of the reason why I don't put a whole lot of stuffing into the center. And you could just do the outside edge. Or, you know, if you like the way it looks without it, you don't have to put any stuffing in there. The felt holds up pretty good. I like it with a little bit of fluff. Trying to decide. I keep feeling a thin spot, and then when I go to put the stuffing in, I can't find it. Okay, that is about where I want it. And then I'm going to put a tiny little bit, just a little bit right on top. And so that it has a little bit of a dome effect when it's on the doll. So now we're going to hand whip stitch around this edge and come right back. Okay, here we are, all whip stitched into place, and now you just turn it to the inside and kind of press into that seam so that it wants to stay that way. There we go. One of the things that you might want to do if you're machine stitching the gills is to put a stay stitch around the inner circle before you start doing that, because I'm pretty sure we stretched out. And there we are. See how cute he looks in the hat. And this will fit the gnomes and the brownie, which actually has a pattern that you can purchase. You can purchase the pattern for the brownie. Also, the pattern for this little cap, does that look cute? Doesn't have any written instructions, so this video is it. So if there's anything that you have problems or issues with, let me know, and I will either explain it in another video or get back in touch with you to see if I can help clear it up just one-on-one. I did say that we were going to see if this fit Elowen and Cindy, so I'm going to go get those two dolls. Also wanted to say that I had planned to put the gnome pattern out for sale, but there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm about the other patterns for the dolls, so I just haven't. If that is something, if we can generate enough interest in the gnome pattern, then I will publish it, but that means I got to hear from you. And hold on. My battery just died, so I had to plug in. Hopefully I've got the cord out of the screen, out of the shot. So here's Cindy, and whoops, let's take her bow off. And that works really well on her. And I think with Ellen, and this was the only one who's didn't have a hat on, I think you could perch it up here, but it's not going to stay on its own. So it's close, but not quite. And I didn't see how we could have both. But it is really close. It's close enough to perch up there if that's what you wanted to do. Maybe even use a hat pin and give her a mushroom hat perched to the side. But anyway, there's that. And totally successful making it fit the guide that it was intended for. Here, let's get the other one in here. So this one I can get on him. This was the first trial there, but you can see that it's really difficult. So it was too close. That's one of the drawbacks of reverse engineering. Sometimes your measurements on the finished object are deceptive, and you have to work it twice. So this is the pattern that is downloadable. There should be a link down in the description box so that you can download the pattern. Do share if you make this mushroom cap pattern. I would love to see what you do with it, and whether or not you choose to do something kind of outside the box, completely different from what I've done, or if you do something exactly like what I've done. I'd love to see it. And I hope that you have a delightful day and a wonderful week. And be sure to go check out the other patterns. When I make patterns that you pay money for, those have written instructions and lots of references to everything. And I offer the same support if you have any issues. So yeah, have a delightful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Hey, Editing Shack here. I went in and changed the hat band length just by a smidge, so it should go in easier without having to do anything crazy. And I'm including the smaller version, which uses the same top, but the gills, and the headband, and the inner cap crown, that sounded awful, the crown, are different. So they'll be on the last page of the pattern with the small option. I'll just label it small option. The pattern pieces are going to look a little weird because I didn't finish them out quite the same. Anyway, you'll see what I'm talking about. I just wanted to go ahead and include that in there. And free download, don't forget, check the link. See you later.